I still remember the way the lobby smelled that morning. Stale lemons and carpet cleaner, the kind they use to hide 1,000 old footsteps. I stood there with my little overnight bag, the navy one my late husband, Paul, bought me on our 30th anniversary, waiting while the young girl behind the counter typed and typed, her brows pinched tight. "Ma'am, I'm so sorry," she finally whispered, cheeks softening. "Your reservation didn't go through. We're fully booked tonight." Her voice wasn't unkind, but the words, they landed like cold rain on already tired bones. I swallowed slowly, feeling that old familiar flutter in my chest. That embarrassing little panic older women try so hard to hide. "But sweetheart, I confirmed it twice," I said, my fingers curling around the handle of my bag. I wouldn't have left home otherwise." She bit her lip. "I know. The system glitched. I wish I could help." For a moment, I just stood there in the lobby, watching the automatic doors breathe open and shut, like the place itself was sighing for me. I had nowhere else to go. No sister's couch. No best friend's spare room. And I didn't want to bother my neighbor, Marla. Not at this hour. So I turned around, tightening my coat at the collar, whispering to myself, "It's just one night, Evelyn. You'll be fine." But the truth was, I didn't feel fine. Not at all. Outside, the wind caught my hair, these silver strands that never stay where I pin them anymore. And I walked toward the bus stop, praying the last ride hadn't left. The streetlights hummed above me, flickering like they were shivering too. And the whole way home, a small ache settled in my chest. I'd left the house earlier that day because Tyler needed space to show a client something. He didn't say what, didn't say why, just that it would be better if I wasn't there. A mother knows when she's being nudged aside, even if she pretends not to. The bus dropped me off at the corner. My house, the little 2-bedroom with the green shutters Paul painted himself, glowed softly from inside. I frowned. I always turned off the lights before leaving. My feet slowed on the walkway. Something felt wrong. Something inside the light, the shadows, the quiet wrongness of the night. I heard voices before I even touched the porch steps. A man's voice. Deep, unfamiliar. "So the backyard comes with the property line extending all the way to the fence? That's rare in this neighborhood." And then Tyler's voice, my son, smooth, polished, almost proud, the way he used to sound when he won a school debate. "Yep, it's a great deal. My mother won't put up a fight." My heart stopped. Not broke, not cracked, stopped. I stood on the porch, fingers trembling over the doorknob. When I pushed the door open, it creaked. That same old creak it's had since 1985. And 3 heads turned toward me. Tyler's eyes widened first, Bree's right after. She was perched like a nervous sparrow near the kitchen doorway, and the stranger, a tall man in a charcoal coat, just blinked in surprised politeness. I stepped inside, clutching my tote against my ribs. "Evening," I murmured, my voice smaller than I meant it to be. "I came home early." Tyler cleared his throat too loudly. "Mom, you weren't supposed to. I thought you were staying at the hotel tonight." "I was," I said softly. "They didn't have space." Bree gave a tight smile, her palms smoothing the hem of her sweater. "Oh, that's unfortunate." "Unfortunate. Not, are you okay?" Not, "You should have called." Just, unfortunate. I turned my eyes to the stranger. "And you are?" He stepped forward with a warm, practiced smile. "Grant Holloway." Tyler was showing me the property. The property, not my home, not the place where I raised my boy, not the kitchen where Paul taught Tyler to make pancakes shaped like dinosaurs. Just property. My breath wavered. "Is that so?" Tyler's jaw worked nervously. "Mom, listen, it's not what you think." I let my coat slip from my shoulders and set it gently over the back of the chair, the same chair where Paul used to read the evening paper. I looked at my son for a long moment, searching his face for my boy. The freckles, the soft eyes, the kindness. All I saw was fear, and guilt, and something he was trying very hard to hide. "Have you ever come home?" I whispered, glancing at the viewers, only I felt in that moment, and felt like the walls you built with love were suddenly strangers to you. If you've known that ache, just write where you're watching from. It might help me feel less alone. Tyler shifted. "Mom, we were just talking. Nothing's final." Grant raised a hand politely. "If this is a family moment, I can step outside." "No," I said, surprising even myself with how steady my voice came out. "If someone's being shown my house, I suppose I should know what's being sold." Bree's cheeks flushed. "It's not like that, Evelyn." I lifted a hand. Quiet, gentle, but firm. "Then what is it like?" I asked. Tyler exhaled. "We were thinking, maybe it's time you moved into somewhere simpler. A retirement condo. Safer. Easier for you." My throat tightened. "And you plan to sell the house?" He didn't answer. His silence did. Sometimes silence hurts more than words. If you've ever felt that, comment, "True." My hand slipped along the dining table as I steadied myself. Something cold and papery brushed my fingertips. A folder. Tyler lunged forward, too late to hide it. I opened it. And there it was. Documents, listings, estimated sale values, signatures being prepared. My heart didn't break this time. It hardened. I looked up slowly, my breath trembling, but my voice quiet and clear. "You were selling my home while I was gone." Tyler's lips parted. "Mom." "No," I whispered. "Don't lie to me in my own doorway." Grant stepped back, eyes lowering, as if ashamed to witness this. And then, something slipped out of the folder. A smaller envelope. Not addressed to Tyler. Not to Bree. To me. My name written in Paul's handwriting. My knees nearly buckled. Tyler froze. Bree went pale. I picked it up with shaking fingers. My husband's handwriting staring back at me, like a voice returning from 22 years ago. Why do you have this?" I asked. Tyler swallowed hard, saying nothing. And just like that, I knew. This wasn't just about selling the house. There was something bigger, something he'd found, something he'd hidden. And you'll understand exactly why Paul's letter terrified my son enough to hide it. I sat at the kitchen table long after Grant excused himself and quietly slipped out the door. The house grew still again. That old, aching stillness that comes after truth cracks open a room. The envelope lay in front of me. Paul's handwriting. My name. A man gone 22 years. And yet suddenly closer than the sun sitting 10 feet away from me. Tyler hovered near the counter, rubbing the back of his neck the way he used to when he spilled milk as a child. "Mom, please," he whispered, "just let me explain." But before I opened that envelope, before I let Paul's ghost speak into this mess, a flood of memories washed over me. Memories that I hadn't touched in years because they still felt warm. And losing warmth hurts more than cold ever could. In 1989, Paul stood on a ladder outside, painting the shutters green, because I said green felt hopeful. He laughed, tapping the brush against my nose. "Then this house will be the most hopeful one in the whole county." Tyler, all freckles and summer cuts, was sitting in the grass making clover crowns for his stuffed bear. "Daddy, make the house rainbow." Paul winked at me. "Your mother would never sleep again if I painted her house like a circus tent." We were simple, not rich, not perfect, but we were warm. Dinner back then meant loud stories and burnt rolls, and Tyler pretending he didn't know how to set the table just so we'd let him get away with doing it wrong. And every night, Paul kissed my forehead and whispered, "Home is safe because you're in it, Evie." Funny, isn't it? Years later, my own son tried to sell that same safety like it was a used lawnmower. I pressed my palm over the envelope, afraid to open it, but more afraid not to. Tyler sat down across from me, shoulders sinking, his voice small. "I wasn't hiding it. I just didn't know how to tell you." "That's not the truth," I said quietly. "Try again." He flinched. From the hallway, I heard soft footsteps. My granddaughter, Chloe, 10 years old, hair always in a lopsided braid, peeked her head around the doorway. "Nana, are you mad at Daddy?" Her voice, gentle and unsure, loosened something tight inside my chest. She didn't know the weight of what she'd walked into. She only saw faces, tones, tiny shifts in grown-up breathing. I opened my arms and she came to me instantly, curling against my side the way she did during thunderstorms. "No, sweetheart," I whispered into her hair. "I'm not mad at you." She looked up at me. "Daddy told me you were going to live somewhere else soon. Is that true?" I looked at Tyler. His face crumpled. Even he couldn't bear the innocence in her question. I smoothed Chloe's braid. "Nothing is decided." She nodded slowly, trusting me because children always trust the ones who feed them stories and cookies and soft safety. Then she slipped back down the hall, humming a tune she made up herself. When she was gone, I finally looked at my son. Really looked. He seemed smaller to me than he ever had. "Why, Tyler?" I asked. "When did I become inconvenient to you?" His eyes filled, but he blinked it away quickly, like tears were something he no longer had the right to show me. "Mom, it wasn't supposed to be like this. I thought selling the house would help. Bree and I have been drowning in bills and—" Ah. There it was, the quiet greed disguised as practicality, the desperation disguised as love. Or maybe it wasn't greed. Maybe it was fear. People do cruel things when life corners them. Still, he should have talked to me. He should have trusted me. I leaned back, letting the chair steady my spine. "You plan to sell this place behind my back." He pressed his hands to his face. "I'm sorry." "Sorry," I repeated softly. Funny how that word feels emptier as you get older. A silence stretched between us, heavy, humming, and more honest than anything we'd said. And somewhere in that silence, a memory surfaced. A sharp one. 10 years after Paul passed. Tyler was in college. Money was tight. I worked double shifts at the small diner down on Maple Street. One night I came home to find him on the porch steps, head in his hands, textbooks scattered. "I can't do this, Mom," he cried. "I'm failing. I should just come home." I knelt in front of him, heart aching, knees stiff but determined. "You will not quit. Your father believed in you, and I do too. You finish what you start." I sold my wedding bracelet that week, the gold one Paul saved for 3 months to buy, paid for Tyler's extra tutoring, paid for his books, paid for everything. He graduated with honors. He never knew what I pawned. I never told him. Some sacrifices belong to mothers alone. I touched the envelope again. My fingers tingled. "Why did you have this?" I asked him. "Where did you find it?" Tyler swallowed. "In the attic." I was cleaning it out, getting it ready for the listing photos. Listing photos. My stomach twisted. "I found a box of Dad's things," he continued, eyes darting away. The letter was inside. I opened it by mistake. Mistake, but his voice trembled in a way that told me he hadn't opened it out of curiosity. He opened it because something inside scared him. My chest tightened. "What did it say, Tyler?" He shook his head. "Mom, please don't." "Why?" I whispered. "What are you afraid I'll find?" His breathing quickened. Bree appeared in the doorway, pale as the moon, wringing her hands. "Evelyn, maybe it's better if you don't—" I looked at her sharply. She went silent. Something icy unspooled through my spine. Slowly, I slid my thumb under the flap of the envelope. Tyler stood up suddenly, knocking his chair backward. "Mom, wait." My heart pounded. To anyone watching, have you ever given everything to your family, only to feel invisible when you needed them most? If you know that pain, just write your name in the comments so I know you're real. I pulled the letter halfway out, yellowed paper, familiar handwriting, and then I saw it, the first line, just 5 words. But those 5 words made Tyler stumble backward like he'd been struck. Words I hadn't heard in decades. Words that changed everything. I froze. My breath hitched, and the room spun. Because Paul had written, "Evelyn, there's something you deserve to know." What he meant, why Tyler feared it, and what truth was buried inside that envelope. That will unfold very soon. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the living room windows in thin, trembling lines, as if even the sun wasn't sure it should be here for what was about to happen. I sat on the edge of the couch, Paul's letter resting in my lap, unopened but humming with truth. Across from me, Tyler paced in small, tight circles. Bree hovered by the bookshelf, arms folded, eyes darting away every time I looked at her. And beside me sat Marla, my neighbour, my friend for 30 years, who had rushed over the second she heard the strain in my voice over the phone. I needed someone in the room who wasn't lying to me. The tension was so thick that even the old grandfather clock seemed to tick more slowly. Tyler finally stopped pacing. "Mum, can we not do this with other people here?" I lifted my gaze to him, steady, tired, but no longer afraid. "Other people?" My voice was soft. "You were ready to show my home to a stranger. A friend is the least I'm allowed." Marla squeezed my hand. Tyler flushed. The envelope trembled slightly as I smoothed it on my lap. Not because of fear, but because once I opened it, nothing could be undone. I looked up. "Sit down, Tyler." He hesitated, but something in my voice made him obey, sinking slowly into the chair across from me. Silence settled, thick, heavy, waiting. I opened the letter. The paper was fragile, almost translucent, like it had been holding its breath for decades. Paul's handwriting curved across the page in the same neat strokes he used when signing birthday cards or leaving little notes in my lunch bag. I read the first line aloud, my voice thin but unwavering. "Evelyn, there's something you deserve to know." Tyler's chin dropped to his chest. Bree exhaled shakily. I continued. "If you find this letter, it means I did not get the chance to tell you in person, and for that, I'm sorry." My throat tightened. Even after 22 years, his words sounded like warm hands on cold skin. The room felt smaller, quieter. "I've left instructions with my lawyer about the house. It belongs to you entirely. No one can sell it without your consent, not even our children." I paused. Marla's brows lifted. Tyler closed his eyes, jaw clenching. A soft gasp came from Bree, sharp and unmistakably guilty. "But the letter wasn't done. This house is your shelter, your work, your memory, your sacrifice. I pray our son grows into a man who protects you, not burdens you." The words landed like soft blows, slow, painful, true. I looked up at Tyler, quietly, without anger. "Paul always knew," I said. Tyler swallowed hard. "Mum, I wasn't trying to—" But the letter fell open again as if insisting to be heard. "There is one more thing. If Tyler ever tries to claim the house for himself, show him this, and remind him of the promise he made when he was 15. My breath caught. A memory flickered in my mind. Tyler at 15, furious after an argument, yelling that he'd never abandon me, no matter what. He had cried afterward, cried in my lap, begged forgiveness. And I had believed him. I set the letter down, palms trembling. "Tyler," I whispered, "did you know about this when you brought that man into my home?" His eyes glistened, tears threatening but still held back by pride or shame. I wasn't sure. "Yes," he choked. "I found the letter 2 weeks ago." The room fell dead silent. Even the clock seemed to hold its breath. "You knew?" My voice cracked in the middle, the hurt slipping through despite all my strength. "You knew this house was mine alone, and you still tried to sell it." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, face collapsing into his hands. "Mom, I'm sorry, we're drowning. The bills, the mortgage, Chloe's school. You could have asked me." My voice barely rose above a whisper, but that whisper carried 22 years of holding our family together. "You went behind my back," I continued. "You treated me like a burden, and you hid your father's last words from me." Bree's voice cracked suddenly. "We didn't mean to hurt you, Evelyn." I turned to her, calm but firm. "But you did." The truth sat naked between us. Marla finally spoke, her tone cool but steady. "Tyler, your mother has lived with dignity all her life. This," she gestured to the papers on the table, "is cruelty, not desperation." Tyler's shoulders shook. For anyone watching, have you ever spoken your truth and still been blamed? If that pain feels familiar, write your age in the comments so I know the years you've carried it. I folded the letter carefully, my fingers brushing the places where Paul's pen had pressed harder, where emotion had lived. Then I reached for the second envelope on the table, the one the lawyer had mailed years ago, still sealed. I hadn't known what it was at the time. I had tucked it away, assuming it was a simple document. But now I knew better. I looked at Tyler. "This," I said softly, "was addressed to me, but I think you already know what's inside." His eyes widened, terrified. I broke the seal. Inside was a single-page document, thick paper, notarized, signed. My breath stilled. Marla leaned closer, reading with me. A collective gasp filled the room. Because it wasn't a will. It was something far more explosive. A binding trust created by Paul before he died, and written clearly at the top. If any family member attempts to coerce or force the sale of the property, their inheritance entirely transfers to... I froze. My lips parted. Tyler stared, his face turning pale as paper. Suddenly he stood up, stumbling back. "Mom, wait, don't, please." But the truth was already unfolding. I read the final line aloud, the room spinning with shock. The guardian chosen by Evelyn Harper. Everyone turned toward me, toward my trembling hands, toward the name written in bold beneath it, the name of the person Paul trusted, more than his own son. And that name was not Tyler's. Low piano, silence like a held breath. The truth was out, but the consequences were only beginning. And very soon we'll reveal who Paul chose, and why that choice shatters what little trust we had left. The lawyer's office was too quiet, not peaceful, but the kind of silence that presses on your ribs and makes it hard to breathe. The blinds were half drawn, letting thin stripes of afternoon light fall across the polished table. It felt like a spotlight. On me. On the truth. On everything that was about to break. Tyler sat across from me, shoulders hunched, hands twisting together like he was trying to knead his guilt into something smaller. Bree stayed close beside him, eyes glossy, mascara smudged just enough to show the morning hadn't been kind to her either. Marla sat to my right, steady, warm, loyal. And beside her was someone I hadn't expected to stand with me today, Mr. Doyle, the old neighborhood attorney who handled Paul's affairs. The man Paul trusted with the documents I was now holding in trembling hands. He cleared his throat gently, glancing at me. "Mrs. Harper, whenever you're ready." I nodded. Then I set the trust document down on the table. The name at the bottom gleamed up at us, bold and immovable. Marla Henderson, appointed guardian of the Harper estate if coercion or forced sale is attempted. Bree gasped, a sharp, involuntary sound. Tyler's jaw simply dropped. The room held its breath. Marla touched her chest, stunned. Evelyn, I didn't know." "I know," I whispered. "Paul chose you because you've protected me longer than anyone else." Tyler leaned forward, voice cracking. "Mom, you can't be serious. Dad barely even knew Marla." Mr. Doyle cut in, his tone firm but calm. "Your father knew her well enough to trust her more than anyone else in this family when it came to protecting your mother." A low murmur rippled through the room. The office staff who had paused outside the glass wall. The receptionist who'd frozen mid-step. People could sense when a truth was about to break open. Tyler's voice grew louder, but it wasn't strength. It was panic. "I wasn't trying to hurt her, I swear. We just needed financial help. I thought the house..." "Is not yours," Mr. Doyle said quietly. Tyler flinched. Not legally, not morally, and not according to your father's final instructions. For a moment, no one spoke. I watched my son, really watched him, and something inside me cracked in the softest way. Not a shatter, a tear, deep enough to hurt, quiet enough to hide. I didn't raise you to steal from me, I said. My voice was barely audible, but it cut through the room like a blade dipped in sorrow. I wasn't stealing, he whispered back, but even he didn't seem to believe it. Mr. Doyle opened another file. Paper rustled, sharp, accusing. This is the recording. Tyler's head snapped up. What recording? The doorbell camera, Mr. Doyle replied. You spoke openly to Mr. Holloway about the sale, about pushing your mother out. The audio is quite clear. Tyler's hands fell to his thighs, limp. Bree covered her mouth as the recording played, Tyler's voice echoing through the room. She won't fight. She's old. She'll just sign if I tell her it's for her own good. Gasps exploded in the hallway. Someone whispered, "How could he say that about his mother?" Another voice murmured, "Some people only realize too late what real wealth is." Tyler buried his face in his hands. I closed my eyes, but tears still escaped, sliding down wrinkles that had weathered decades of love and loss. I didn't speak until the recording ended. "Tyler," I whispered, wiping my cheek with shaking fingers, "you talked about me like I was disposable." "I'm sorry," he choked out. "Mom, please. I made a mistake. I was desperate." Desperation doesn't excuse betrayal. Mr. Doyle placed one last document on the table. This is the legal consequence. Attempted coercion triggers the trust clause, meaning you forfeit all inheritances tied to the property. Tyler stared at him, stunned. All. Bree's breath hitched. Our everything. Your father meant for this house to protect your mother, Mr. Doyle said gently, not to rescue your poor decisions. The shame on their faces. It wasn't something I reveled in. It wasn't something I enjoyed. It simply broke me in a different way, like watching flowers you planted wilt from the roots. I turned slightly toward the invisible audience that so many storytellers carry in their hearts. If seeing truth win gives you hope, share this story so others know justice still exists. And if you believe that sometimes justice takes time, but always comes, comment true. When I looked back at Tyler, he couldn't meet my eyes. People in the hallway continued staring through the glass, whispering, shaking their heads, some with pity, some with disbelief. One older man muttered, "Stealing from your own mother. Shameful." A young woman whispered, "She deserved better." Bree grabbed Tyler's arm. "We need to go." He stood slowly, shoulders sagging under the weight of the consequences he had created with his own hands. "Mom." He paused, voice shaking. "I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say." I folded Paul's letter gently, pressing it to my heart. "You don't need to say anything," I murmured. "Just do better." He nodded once, a broken, regretful nod, and walked out of the office with Bree trailing behind him. Silence settled again, heavy, but this time, honest. I sank back into my chair, breathing deeply as Marla reached over and took my hand, her thumb brushing reassuring circles across my skin. "You're safe now," she whispered. Mr. Doyle smiled softly. "Your husband protected you, even from beyond the years." I exhaled, a long, slow breath that felt like it had been waiting inside me for decades. But as I stared at the empty doorway where my son had stood moments ago, a question rose quietly, painfully. Was victory worth the price of losing him? And deep in my chest, the ache answered. Justice was done, but peace still felt far away. And very soon will reveal what healing looks like. Months later, when the heart tries to mend what betrayal broke, it's strange how quiet a home feels after the storm finally passes. 3 years have slipped by since the day my own son tried to trade the walls that held his childhood for a stranger's handshake. And yet, as I open my curtains each morning, letting the soft light settle on my kitchen table. It feels like a lifetime ago, and also like yesterday. I rebuilt slowly, quietly. One habit, one breath, one cup of morning tea at a time. The house looks different now, not because of new paint or new furniture, but because peace has a way of rearranging a place. My garden, once overrun with weeds, now blooms with marigolds and lavender. I take care of it myself. My knees complain, but my heart never does. The birds still come around sunrise, tapping their tiny feet on the railing, as if checking whether I'm awake. And yes, most days I am. Healing doesn't come in grand moments, not at my age. It comes in the small ones. Like the afternoon I found an old photograph tucked between cookbooks. My son at 6 years old, smiling with 2 front teeth missing, holding my hand. For a moment, the betrayal felt distant, like it belonged to someone else's life. I sat on the kitchen stool and traced the edges of the photo with my thumb. I did my best, I whispered to the quiet room. Sometimes that's the only closure we get, the knowing that our love wasn't a failure, only misplaced. I still have days when the pain shows up uninvited, birthdays, holidays, and the nights when the wind sounds too much like an old memory tapping on my window. But I've learned something important. Grief doesn't vanish, it softens, and dignity, it grows back stronger. There's a wooden box on my shelf now, filled with little reminders of what I survived, the court papers, the letters I wrote but never sent, the hotel receipt from that night the check-in failed. I keep them not to reopen wounds, but to honor the woman I became because of them. If I've learned anything in these quiet years, it's this: revenge eats the heart. But forgiveness, even private forgiveness, frees it. I didn't forgive him to welcome him back. I forgave him so I could breathe without bitterness poisoning my mornings. And I learned something else too, something I want every mother and grandmother listening to me to remember. True inheritance has nothing to do with houses, land, or papers. The real inheritance we leave is the way we love, the stories, the values, the quiet strength we pass through generations. Maybe one day my son will understand that. Maybe not. But I refuse to let his choices define the last chapters of my life. And let me ask you something. If you've ever healed after heartbreak, even slowly, like this video, so I know I'm not walking this road alone. Sometimes healing feels like standing on shaking legs until they finally steady. Comment, strong, if you've ever had to rebuild yourself from nothing but hope. I'm not alone anymore. Last spring, my granddaughter, the one who used to braid daisies into my hair, came to visit me. She brought muffins she'd baked herself, still warm, wrapped in a towel like a treasure. "Grandma," she said softly, "I'm sorry for everything you went through." Her voice cracked the same way my heart did years ago, but this time, the break was healing, not hurting. We sit in the garden together now, watering the plants, talking about little things, her school, my recipes, the birds that don't behave. Sometimes she stays for dinner, sometimes just for a cup of tea. But every visit is a reminder. Love has a way of finding the cracks and pouring itself in. A few neighbors check on me now and then. A kind young man mows my lawn once a month, even though I insist I could manage. I've built a life that doesn't depend on anyone's approval, a life stitched together with peace and small joys. The laughter that fills my house today isn't loud, but it's real. And now, as I sit by my window, watching the sun dip behind my lavender bushes, I realize something I never allowed myself to think before. Maybe losing my son wasn't the end of my story. Maybe it was the beginning of understanding my own worth. But I still ask myself sometimes, in the soft hours of the night, if life gave you a second chance to reclaim peace, would you take it?